Good morning, good morning, good morning, y'all. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. I'm going to introduce my special friend and guest in just a moment. But listen, wherever you guys will be tuning in from, whether live or on the replay, I want you to know, uh, get your notepads out, get your pens out. There's going to be a lot of helpful, insightful, critical information today that's going to be useful for you in your business right now. Yes, right now. There's going to be practical examples that you're going to be able to glean from, so that as you tackle the challenges of business today in 2023, going into 2024, you're going to have more resources at your disposal to help you win. Brian, what do you think of that intro?
Well, that's an awesome intro. Whether I can live up to that or not is yet to be seen.
So this, without further ado, this is the perfect time to welcome to my guest. His name is Brian Emerson. He is my business coach, and I'm so excited to have Brian on the call today to enlighten us with wisdom from his many years of experience. He's still in the field, guys, so it's not like he's retired, living up the lavish life somewhere and away from the problems of the business world today. He's still in the trenches, guys. He's still working with business owners now. So this isn't a guy who's removed from the challenges you are currently facing. He is currently in the trenches with people, helping them with the solutions and the clarity that they need. His business is called Clarity Business Coaching. Brian, welcome.
Thank you, Josh. Again, I hope I can live up to your expectations.
Oh, you already have. You already have. Brian, I'm so excited to hear you speak. And there's some questions that we've been getting from people in the business world. And if you don't mind, I just want to jump right in and kind of get to the meat of this with you, because I know there's going to be a lot you're going to have to say and want to say on this. One of the biggest business challenges that are happening is the constant change in the economical world, the uncertainty. People are dealing with constantly changing consumer trends, cash flow, the uncertainty that's coming up all around us as we navigate this thing called business. And I just want to take a moment to kind of dive into something particular that we're getting questions about, because I find, and you'll be able to expand on this, the mindset of the business owner during a time of such chaos is so important to be grounded. And there seems to be this opportunity to really hone in on what's important, what should be the priority in a time like this, because it's so easy to get lost in the weeds. It's so easy to pay attention to the wrong thing. So I would love to hear your thoughts on how a business owner can just use their mind to analyze, what's important right now that they should be focusing on, what is urgent right now, and what's not urgent. What are some things they need to not focus on in order to move forward strategically in a way that's going to be effective for their business?
Well, I'm hearing a bunch of questions in that paragraph, or if you will. One of the things that you've touched on is understanding the difference and making the distinction between the important and the urgent. And it's really a great tie into time management. And what I'm going to do, Josh, I'm going to try sharing my screen here.
Absolutely. We love visuals.
Yeah, me too. So I'm just going to, this is something I've I've prepared for my clients when I deal with them online, and it's helpful to see. One of the things, a tool that we use in time management is something called the ABCDE list, and I'll touch on that in a moment. But this ties into that. When you're looking at anything you're doing, you have to ask yourself: it's obviously something that's urgent when it's banging on your door, but is it important? And there is a difference. So if it's something is both, we know we do that. If something is neither, well, we don't do that. The question is, what about if something is urgent but not important, or important but not urgent? And what the tendency is something called the tyranny of the urgent, or we've all heard the expression, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Well, you know, that wheel is getting squeaky. It's really, really irritating. So if you think of your car, you know, the wheel's squeaky and it's loud.
Right.
But maybe you've been starving your engine of oil, and your engine's about to blow up and destroy the head, the head of your engine, and the head gasket job is, or to replace the cylinders. That's a total motor job. I mean, that's thousands and thousands of dollars. But the squeaky wheel just needed a little bit of grease. Right. And so it was urgent. It was annoying, but it wasn't the most important thing going on. And so when we talk about the ABCDE list, I just find this helpful, that we look at, well, your A list is obvious. It's important and it's urgent.
Right.
But what should happen is your B list. So for example, you have, for our Canadian viewers, if you're Americans, you'll perhaps bear with us, but we have to prepare our taxes, and we do our HST submissions, either monthly or quarterly. And if you're doing it quarterly and you've just done your HST, and well, now you get another 90 days before it's due again. So it's not very urgent, but it's terribly important. If you don't ask anybody that hasn't done their taxes and have the Canadian Revenue Agency come after you, you'll understand how important that is. Mm-hmm. So it's not urgent, but it's important. So we really should be doing that before some of these squeaky wheel things, and then and then you can get to the C. And the trick here, from a time management standpoint, is you never do anything on your B list until everything on your A list is done. And also, same thing, you don't do anything on your C list until everything on your B list is done, or at least done as far as you can take it. So, for example, you might have a project that's going on that you've taken as far as you can in that moment, and maybe you're waiting on a phone call for somebody else, or somebody give you a report, and you can't take it any further. Well, now you go on to your B list, or again on your C list. And the D stands for delegate, and the E stands for eliminate. So you want to delegate and eliminate what you can. If you do your A, D, and C according to this, not don't have that tyranny of the urgent.
This is really interesting, Brian, because like the image I had in my mind, like there's so many of us as entrepreneurs, business owners, small business owners, and we have the tendency to go squirrel. Like everything is urgent. Everything is something that we need to pay attention to right now. We got somebody joining the call. So it's very, very interesting that you've kind of dissected this in a way that you can actually, in your mind, put different categories of, hey, what's urgent, what's not urgent, what's important but not urgent, and etc.
Brian Tracy once said, there's never enough time to do everything, but there's always enough time to do the most important thing. And what I found helpful, and I picked this up from my brother, the terminology that he uses, not sure if it was original with him or he just got it from somebody else. By the way, originality is the ability to forget where you heard it. But what Steve would say is that, yeah, I know it's important, but is it critical? And so, being able to differentiate between the important and the critical, because, in your business, pretty much everything is important, but is it critical? And to be able to make that determination to say, well, where does that fall on that, in that, which quadrant does that fall in that chart that we were looking at?
I love it. I love it. By the way, we just had J.S. Jenkins join the call. How are you doing today, sir?
Probably muted.
Yeah. If you want to unmute yourself and say hello, you certainly can. But just as you're jumping in, we're talking about business marketing challenges that just about every business owner is facing in some way, shape, or form in 2023. And we just finished talking about how to determine, what things are important, what things are urgent, what things we can kind of move to the side at the moment. They're important, but they're not urgent and certainly not in our A list. So just learning how to categorize things so that it doesn't confuse us in our mind and we don't go squirrel. Everything is urgent. We end up running around like a chicken with our head cut off. So I appreciate that analogy, Brian. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you as well is lots of business owners are faced with having to change their model, or at least adjust their model to some degree based on the changing economics that are happening right now. Now, these changes can be super difficult to implement, especially when you have staff, especially when you're dealing with people that don't want or like change, and you yourself actually may not want or like this change either. But as a business owner who's steering the ship, you are in a position where something has to change. So Brian, my question to you is this: how does somebody, a CEO, a small business owner, navigate that with the challenges of making those adjustments in their business, getting buy-in from the staff? Maybe some are easier than others. How does a business owner go about navigating that effectively?
Well, I think one of the things you have to do before that is understanding your people. And some people have an easier time with change. Some people actually enjoy change. Some people, I've heard it said that, well, I don't mind change as long as it doesn't impact me. But actually, some people find it stimulating. I know growing up, my mom was, she would change around the family room furniture every 3 weeks. Drove me crazy. I mean, I don't mind change, but not for the sake of change. I want change for a purpose. She just needed that extra stimulation and just enjoyed it. Some people, her cat didn't like it, she would change the furniture and the cat would pee on the rug because just the cat didn't like change at all. So, and human beings are, we've got a full spectrum. So it helps to understand your audience, to know your staff. But when you're managing change, there's a guy back in the 60s named David Glaisher, and he came up with an idea, what became known as Glaisher's formula. And I'm just going to share that as well with you. And what he said was that D times V times Fs must be greater than R. And I know everybody feels smarter just by looking at that, but let me put some detail to it. The R is your resistance to change. Everybody has, like I say, varying degrees of resistance to change. So it's sometimes it's a hard sell. Somebody doesn't like change at all. Sometimes it's a stimulant to some people. But you have to overcome three things. And the first is dissatisfaction with the status quo. The second is a vision for an alternative future. And the third is some idea what the first steps are. And in fact, Josh, I did an Instagram on this very thing. And if anybody's interested, they can check that out at Clarity Business Coaching.
Wonderful.
But you'll notice that it's multiplication, not addition here. That D times V times Fs. And what that means is if any one of these is 0, change cannot be overcome, or the resistance to change cannot be overcome. So you need to, like say for example, if you got a few staff members, you're just talking to them one-on-one, and you you ask them questions, and then you could, because you want their answers to conclude that, okay, something's got to change. There's a dissatisfaction with the way it is. Well, do we know where we want to go? Yeah, okay, we have this vision we want to, where we'd like to be. Do we know what we're going to do? Well, for example, if you say you've got a company that's just a couple of people in it, and then you've had some real growth, and now you need to have spreadsheets aren't cutting it. You need to input say a QuickBooks accounting system or enterprise system. Mm-hmm. Well, that involves change, and you get used to that. Well, are we getting frustrated with the errors that are taking on our spreadsheets? Because if you just have one keystroke wrong, you messed it up, or maybe it wasn't built perfectly, and there's a lot of a lot of work required just to pull out something simple. And you guys, have you ever used an enterprise system, and boy, you can just click a button and it does it, and I'll get people excited. Well, how do we do that? Well, we've got to maybe we need to bring in a trainer to train us on, or maybe there's QuickBooks for Dummies at the library, or whatever that first step would be. So you've got to cover all three of these bases to overcome that resistance to change. And by the way, this also works at a personal level. So when you're talking to your kids, when you're talking to your spouse, when you're talking to your buddies,
right? Same
thing exists. Where do you want to go on vacation? How do we change things up with, what we're doing for, this volunteer organization we're in? It applies everywhere. Glacier's formula is universally applicable.
I like that, Brian. Very, very practical. And it leads me to another interesting question that I believe there's some practical wisdom here that anybody can begin implementing today. I was talking to you earlier about questions around business agility, and that being something that business owners are looking to learn more about, looking to walk in to make sure that they're maintaining, sustaining, and growing their businesses. And you mentioned something interesting to me around the idea of using some of your products that maybe they haven't been used all that much in the past. They're maybe smaller products, not the ones that the big ticket items that people would normally sell. But you mentioned using products that are of a different value that you can use to actually increase your profits. And I would love to hear you speak on that. I thought it was very interesting, and I think it'll be valuable to the people listening.
Well, actually, Josh, that comment was actually heading in a different direction. And what I said was, well, let me use an example. You have say you have a company that has 10 machines, whether it could be 10 people doing tasks or whatever, but you've got 10. And I use 10 because it's an easier number to deal with. Your sales guy comes in and he says, "Boss, we have an opportunity to grow our business by 10% this year." So what that means is we need to go from 10 machines to, and by the way, these machines are maxed out. We've done all of our optimizations with them, and we're getting as much out of them as we can. We make assumption that we've done that. But we're going to grow the business by 10%. We need to buy an 11th machine. And so then your accountant comes in and says, "Well, I'm looking at all of the contribution that all of our customers. So we have anything. We've got fantastic. We got a few customers that are making like 70% margin, and we got a couple of a couple down the other end that are making 5% margin. But on average, we're making about 25% margin. So that's what we're going to use to justify that 11th machine." Does that make sense to you?
Right. Yes.
Okay. Then, and based on that, it's going to be a 3-year payback. Well, Then the sales guy says, no, boss, you don't understand. That business that 10% business coming in, it's better than average. We got 33 or 35% return, not 25. It's going to be a 2-year payback. That sounds even better. And as an owner, you're really excited about that. Then your coach comes along, and I throw some water on the excitement, because I say, no. You got to justify it based on that 5% return. And by the way, that means it's a 15-year payback or a 20-year payback. And say, Brian, what are you talking about? Why the business coming in is got all this contribution? Why wouldn't we justify it on that? The answer is because the principle is you justify it on the lowest margin business, because as an alternative, we could get rid of those small customers, free up 10% capacity, so we don't have to buy any machine. And if you want to buy that machine, it's because you chose to keep those low margin business. So if you're gonna buy that machine, you justify it on that low margin business that you're going to keep.
Okay.
So it gets back to principle. You justify your growth on your lowest margin business. Now, if you're to the point where you've got capacity, well, as long as you have positive contribution, bring it on. It doesn't matter. What I'm talking about is if you're at capacity and you have to make further investment, you always have the choice of getting rid of those smaller customers, or just come along and raise your price on those folks. And if they accept it, well, now they're no longer 5%. Well, now they're up into the 40% range. Well, now and now your worst clients are, say, 10%. Well, now you justify, do I keep those 10% clients, or do I and if I buy that new equipment, I got to justify it on that. Well, now that becomes it's not 20-year payback, it's a 10-year payback. Still may not be worth it. Still may want to get rid of the 10%, or you put a price increase through and they didn't take it and they left on their own. That'd be my way of getting rid of clients, by the way, is raising prices, is because then you're not irritating people and burning bridges and so on. You just say this is the increased cost, and it's got to be profitable for both sides. It's got to be win-win, and it's not right now. It's not win for us, and we need to make this change. And if they're not prepared to go along with that, well, you've just freed up your capacity. So now your sales guy can bring in that 35% new business. So that's the principle: is you justify purchases on your lowest margin business. And it's counterintuitive, and it's it's these kinds of things where I believe a coach is more than pays for itself. I mean, you think if that machine was $1 million machine, and you're paying a lot of money to have that, plus you got to man it. Well, if you didn't do that, how much did that save you? A lot more than you're paying for coaching. I assure you that.
Right. And just so that everybody that's listening is clear, this is the type of thing that a good coach will challenge you on. Because if you've noticed, I asked my question, and Brian quickly came back and said, actually, there's a different direction that this was meant to go into. And actually, that's the way a good coach will work, because I'll come in with ideas, and hey, this is my thought of it works this way. And your coach is meant to have your blind spots. There just may be things you're not thinking about at all. And that's when your coach comes behind you and says, well, did you think about this? Did you think about this? Here's some scenarios of how this could go, this could go, this could go. And so I just wanted to use that as an example, because you did take the question in a completely different direction, but it was a valuable direction and something that I believe we needed to hear. Because and it goes to the question I asked before about making changes, because sometimes changes in your business, it doesn't just affect your team in-house, it affects your customers, your clients, the people that are using your services. And when you have clients that are, it's a lower level business, as far as the dollars that they're spending with you, that type of thing, and you want to make some changes, first of all, having the freedom to know that you can do that in a way that's not muddying the water and as you put it, burning bridges, You're simply raising your price. Strategic things like that, I think are super helpful, because I think there are business owners right now that are in that position where they're like, you know what, I got all this business here. I kind of want to focus on this business over here, but I don't know what to do with and some of these clients are people that have been there since the beginning. When you first got started, and you had even, a whole different model back then. So I love the mindset and the switch and the freedom that brings in the scenario that you just gave.
Well, in fairness to you, Josh, there are other times when, and my job is not to be critical, but to critique. It's just to pressure test. And there are times that you've had ideas, and I poke at it, and you're fine. It comes out well. I mean, you say, yeah, let's do that. But even then, the value is, if we didn't have that conversation, you'd be thinking, well, maybe some self-doubt. Was that a good thing? But the fact that you had somebody else look at it and say, yeah, that makes sense, it takes that stress away. Just having sounding board, I guess the expression I was looking for, having a sounding board, just is a stress minimizer. And then there are other times when it's a good idea, but we tweak it, make it a little better. And there's other times, after we banged around a bit, we scrap it and do something entirely different. But you just touched on something too that I wanted to mention, and that is, it's not usually the what that gets us into trouble. It's usually the how. Said another way, there's a whole bunch of wrong ways to do the right thing. I mean, we've seen politicians do this, and there's some great examples south of the border where you got to have a politician that has maybe some really good ideas, but he's doing it in such a confrontational way, unstatesmanlike way, that is, it's almost like the message is lost in the method.
Right.
And you can do things in your business. You can have you can be confrontational, or you can get the same thing done in a non-confrontational way. I mean, you can you can do some very negative things in a maybe not positive way, but you pick the least negative. And so, or there might be a very good way of bringing the message across. And so it's usually, give it some thought as to how you're going to do it, not just the what. And are there, think outside the box. Are there some, and maybe, talk about it with, if you don't have a coach, talk about it with a trusted advisor, with a mentor. If it's significant and it's going to affect people. By the way, there's another expression: anything worth doing is worth doing poorly at first, and that works really well when it comes to projects or initiatives. There's two areas that doesn't do well for. One is anything to do with people, with compensation. You don't go and say, well, here's your bonus plan, and then halfway through the year change it. Well, get it right the first time. And the second one is that in my experience has been anything to do with computer systems. So say you want to put it, you want to have a modification to your computer, and then the guy is partway through it, and then you come back and say, well, what about, I'd like to add this change. Well, you've just added a lot of cost at best. At worst, they come back and say, well, if we had known that, we would have designed this differently. Everything we've done so far, we got to scrap that and start over, because you didn't plan well out at the beginning. And I guess another example would be buildings. I mean, I've done building expansions, and I remember at the end of one of my first building expansion, we did the office, we did the part of the plant, and the whole thing was all done, and somebody said, Brian, looking back on it, would you have changed anything? And I looked around and said, yes, I would have moved that light switch over there. That's it? 18,000 square foot office expansion and a 40,000 square foot plant expansion, and you'd move one light switch? Said, yeah, because we planned it really, really well. It's really easy to move a wall when it's on paper or on the computer. It's a
Mhm.
lot more expensive when the wall's already up and now you want to move it. So there's
Right.
certain things that you want to plan well through. The other things, and one of my blogs on my website is I talk about this, is that somebody's working on a project, and I asked the boss, his boss about it, who worked for me. I said, well, where is the supervisor on the project? Well, he's still working on it. Well, that was supposed to have been implemented, a couple of days ago. What's going on? Well, he's still tweaking it. Well, get it done, tweak it as you go, because you're never going to get it perfect anyway. It's a difference between doing it 70% right, doing it 90% right, doing it 98% right. That's a big difference. Do it
Yes.
70%, tweak it. Within a week, you're up to 85, 90, and then with another week, you're up to 98. You'll never get to 100 because you're always improving. But if you wait until you get that 98%, you've lost all the value of that intervening time that you could have had. And you also have the advantage of of including other people in it and getting ownership from them. That's another blog, by the way, making things their idea. So I don't want to get too far down a rabbit hole here, Josh, but I'm talking as stuff comes to my mind of things that your viewers might find helpful.
It's very helpful, Brian. And this is actually a good transition into my final question for you, because in your last answer, you talked quite a bit about the importance of planning. And there may be some people that are watching this who are in a season of transition, and they're actually looking to exit out of their company, and they're looking to sell their company. So you mentioned a little bit earlier, before we jumped on the call today, that there are 3 different types of people looking to buy businesses. And I would love for you to speak on that, if you could do so for us.
Okay, let me just pull that up. It's not that these calls are scripted. I just have I have a number of slides that I find helpful when dealing with some of my clients are online. If I'm in person, I draw these things out face to face, but when I'm online, I need some way of doing this, so I've just made a bunch of slides.
We love the visuals.
Yeah. Somebody once said, there was a Chinese proverb, tell me and I may forget, ask me and I remember, show me and I'll be involved, or something to that effect. Anyway, there's when you look at this, has the 3 types of buyers as far as how much owner involvement there is. And if you look down the bottom, opportunistic, this is somebody wants to sell their business and they've got to sell. Maybe they've got a health problem, or their spouse has a health problem, and say, I just got to get out. I don't have the time. And if I get out, or if I don't sell, the business is going to downward spiral and I'll ruin everything I've built. But if you do that, you're going to pay for that. You're going to get less than market value. Then if the more normal is 6 to 18 months. And what this is involvement in the business. So in other words, Josh, I want to buy your business, but I want you, I need you to be in that business for 12 or 6 to 18 months, just for continuity. And, so I learn the ropes, and so the customers get used to a new ownership, and the staff as well. And if there's any questions I have, and then if you've got the time, you might want 18 to 36 months. Well, you can actually get a higher value for that, the more you're willing to put in. So the question is, you want to ask yourself these questions way before you have to sell. And I would say even farther before that, because to maximize the sale value, there is something called EBITDA, which is a financial term. It's basically net cash flow plus interest, which EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Right. And like I say, it's basically net cash flow plus interest. And the reason you throw the interest in there, because some buyers are going to have to borrow money to buy your company. Some bigger company could just buy you outright with cash. And so when you add the interest back in, it just kind of normalizes that. And what they do is they take the EBITDA times a factor, and the factor is going to depend on your industry. So my background is manufacturing, and that can be anything from 5 to 10, depending on how good it is. So if say you had an EBITDA of $1 million and $2 million in debt. So you had, so you take, say it's the 5 multiplier. So it's EBITDA times 5 is 5 million minus $2 million in debt. Your company's worth $3 million. Well, where did that $1 million of EBITDA come from? Well, that was the average of the last 3 years. Well, so you need to have 3 good years of maximizing that EBITDA to maximize your selling price.
Right.
Well,
right.
To me, that means you should be getting a coach or somebody like that 4 years, because give yourself a year to do all the improvements, get it up, and then give yourself 3 good years. So if you're going to sell your company, you want to, there's 2 parts to it. There's the pre-sale and the post-sale. The pre-sale is you want to have this involvement at least 4 years ahead of time, and then on the other end, you want to somewhere between 6 and 36 months of involved after the business you sell the business. Now, that's just I'm making the assumption too that you actually want to sell the business. And you're saying, well, yeah, I know I want to sell the business. What are you talking about? Well, one option is you could hire a general manager to run your business, and you can manage by distance, what I call desktop management, on a laptop on the beach in Tahiti.
Right.
So that's a possibility, and that may if a person looks at that and says, "Well, I never even considered that." Well, how do I do that? Well, again, that's managing by distance is a separate skill, and that's something that you can learn. Anybody can learn it. Again, I teach my clients that depending on what their needs are, but there may be somebody else in your life that can teach you how to manage by distance. If not, give me a call. But they don't. A person says, "Well, I need to sell my business." No, you don't. I've got clients that have they've had reasons that they need to step away from the business, and they're managing by distance. And in some cases, they want to come back in the business. In some cases, no, this is more of a permanent situation, and it can work. Or maybe you should be selling your business. But part of my job too is to make sure you understand what all your options are. Don't just have a too narrow of a field.
It's probably easier to, like, to your point, if you're managing one person, meaning you've put somebody in place as a general manager, and that's the only person that answers to you. Now you're managing by distance one person instead of being up close managing, whether your team's 10 or 20 or 30 or whatever the case may be. You're managing one person, which is a lot easier to do by distance, I would think, than managing your entire team by distance.
Well, yeah, because at that point you're just managing. You're working on your business. You're not working in your business at all. You're not doing day to day at all. That's what your general manager is doing. I can tell you personally, my father did this. If anybody's watching this doesn't know, I'm a 3rd generation business owner. My grandfather started a company, and my dad built it, and he got to the point toward the end of his career that and he had sons in the business, my brother and I, and he had a very experienced manager who was 3 months younger than him. I mean, he's the same generation, and he made Peter president of the company. Well, when Dad was president, he had 2 divisions. So, and he already taken the summers off to go sailing because that was his passion. And so we would have 10 meetings for each of these divisions, so 20 meetings plus 4 board meetings a year. Well, then when Dad made Peter president, that 24 became 4 and quickly became 3 board meetings to work around his sailing schedule. Dad was sailing 9 months a year. And he spent 9 months a year, in down the coast of Maine or in the Bahamas. And that's the way he and my mom wanted to spend that time. But he had built his business to the point that he could do that. And And something my father always told me, he said, Brian, you can never, ever rise above the level of your people. You want to hire the best people you can afford. And he did that. And he had some, and the advantage to me was these guys that Dad had hired were my mentors, because they poured into my career, and I always said my education really kicked in when I finished my MBA, because these guys were just amazing, and they wanted my success, and they wanted to leave a legacy through me. And so I have a great debt to them, and in fact that's one of the reasons that I'm passionate about coaching, is passing the stuff along.
Wow. Incredible. Brian, I want to thank you so much for being able to share your wisdom. I know you're a very busy guy. You're constantly meeting with clients and different things like that going on. But I want to thank you so much for taking the time out today to spend with us and to share your wisdom. I believe it's somebody truly is getting help through what you've shared with us today. It's been truly a treat. And if you didn't hear throughout the show, guys, you can go over to actually, Brian, do you want to give your website and social media and that, so people know where to find you?
Yeah, it's claritybusinesscoaching.ca is my website, and you can also do Clarity Business Coaching on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm just under my name, and Facebook as well. So whatever your preference and your choice is, you can find me. And I think they're all kind of cross-referenced with each other. So if you find one, you can find them all. Yeah, and by the way, on my website, something people have found helpful is under resources. There's I have what I call a Clarity blog. It's my blogs that I've written. These aren't cut and pasted from something else. These are ones that I have written myself. And so that if somebody's maybe even considering me, it's a bit of a test drive. You can kind of see what I'm about. I think differently than a lot of people do, and that'll give you an insight into my head.
That's wonderful. And there's also a tab there under resources called past webinars, and you will be able to go there and see this broadcast as well as others that Brian has done in the past. So I hope that is truly of value to you. Make sure to head over to the website and see the value that you seek there. Brian, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you, sir.
Very welcome. Thank you, Josh.